To Mark's motivational podcast, another Authors Tuesday. Today I'm delighted to be joined by a great guest I've had on the podcast before, Carolyn Dubisch, and her husband Mike. So it was great to have Carolyn on the podcast. God, it must be about guts of a year or two ago now.
Yeah.
So and they both brought out two new books since our last podcast. So I want to welcome the both of you along today. Thanks a lot for joining me on the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having us. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
great stuff. So we might start off the podcast just to refresh the listeners who listened to the last podcast we did, a little bit about yourselves and the books you've written and your journey so far as writers would be great. Thanks very much.
Mhm. Well, I'm a children's book author and illustrator. I also create comics for kids and young adults. And together we are working on we have a series of young adult comics that we do together, and my husband is an illustrator. But I have many books out. I have awards from several of them, and it's been quite a ride creating these. I'm originally from New York, and now we both live in Mexico, on the Pacific coast.
Lovely. Yeah,
And I do children's books about this region.
great. Yeah. So, Mike, it's great to talk to you, and welcome along to the podcast as well. And would you like to maybe talk a little bit about your journey as an illustrator, please? Would be great.
Sure.
Yeah.
I've been an author illustrator since my high school years. I started publishing I was lucky. There was a small press comic book publisher that was relatively local to me in Albany, New York. So I started out with them. At the same time, I also started coloring for comic books with a place called Bifrost Studios that started out with coloring for most of the independent color comics in the 1980s, and eventually ended up at Marvel and Dark Horse and DC doing colors for them. I have appeared in multiple tabletop role-playing game systems for Star Wars and Dungeons and Dragons, as well as smaller titles like Rifts and Beyond the Supernatural. And I just recently did a new launch on helped launch a new role-playing game system that hasn't been released yet. And I still appearing in various underground comics, including Slow Death Eco Funnies put out a final issue 10. The first issue came out the year I was born. So that was really cool. My parents introduced me to underground comics when I was growing up, so this is really full circle to get to publish in these even the very titles that I was introduced to when I was really young. And I also did a lot of children's book illustration for the Short Tales Magic Wagon series. We did a lot of fairy tales like Puss in Boots and Jack and the Beanstalk, as well as myths and legends like Medusa and Tyr, and thing I think is a anyway. So we did a lot of those, and the boxcar children comics as well. So yeah, and I've been working with Carolyn on The People That Melt in the Rain for well over a decade now.
Wow, great stuff. That's a great story. That's a great backstory, Mike. Really good. Like, because Marvel, wow, that's big stuff. Well done.
So in high school, from going to comic book conventions, I was meeting local artists, obviously much older than me. And I started coloring for this local comic book coloring studio, Bifrost Studios, where we started out in indie comics, and then ultimately colored for Marvel, DC, and Dark Horse. When in there, when I went down to New York City for art school 4 years later, I brought Carolyn back up with me upstate, and she also joined the studio for a time and got some Marvel coloring credits. I was also very lucky that there was a local independent small press publisher, Fanico Comics, up in Albany. Interesting historical note is they are known as the very first of the underground publishers. Certainly not the most widely known, but definitely an early one, and they're still publishing. But yeah, so they started me out. They published stories that I wrote and drew while I was in high school and in the first year of art school. And they still publish work by Indian horror artist Gurchain Singh, who also known as the Gurch. So they're still around. Yeah, it's been great. The comic book industry has been very welcoming.
Wow, that's great. Thanks a lot for sharing all that, Mike. That's absolutely amazing. Great stuff. Um, and I would like to both talk about the graphic novel that it is two graphic novels you're working on at the moment. And
Sure.
if you'd like to show the people watching on YouTube as well, please.
Sure. We have been working on a series called The People That Melt in the Rain for a long time. This is the first issue. This came out in November of 2023. And our new book, I don't actually have a copy of it. This is the painting of the cover. I don't know if it's showing up,
Yeah,
but
it's showing up, yeah.
it's called Ghosts, and it is the second book in the series. We're really excited because it's getting some very good reviews.
Yeah.
And it is basically this first book ends with Laura being trapped inside a painting inside her new middle school.
Yeah.
So there's a lot leading up to that, but then suddenly she is trapped inside the painting. And this story, Ghosts, is her exploring this painting that she's trapped in her grandmother's past, and it's very sort of surreal, but it also it's a very magical, whimsical sort of series that pulls her back out of the painting and into the new town that she's moved into, which is full of magic and strange creatures and witches, and it's getting very well received. So we're really, really quite excited about it.
That sounds amazing. That sounds great. And is it released now? Is it out there now for people
Yes.
to get? Right. Yeah.
Book 1 and 2 are available on Amazon and any
Amazon
other?
and lulu.com. And you can get this one as a free download on as an ebook on Barnes and Noble, on Kindle, on Barnes and Noble, and numerous other online sites. Kobo, I think, has it. You can, and it's been distributed to a number of free libraries online too, but you can get the first book. The second book is mostly just on Amazon right now and on lulu.com.
Great stuff. And would you mind maybe just reading out a section of the book just to give people a feel for it? It would be brilliant. Just even
Well,
the introduction of it, the back of it. Or,
we could read this one.
Yeah.
I don't
Right.
have a copy of this.
And show
new
the
book?
illustrations as well. It'd be brilliant as well. Oh, they're cool. Wow. Deadly. Great stuff.
So we worked together on this art. These were pencil drawings that Carolyn painted
Yeah.
in Photoshop.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Now these days we're working in Procreate, but at the time we were working in Photoshop for these. So this is page 1. New Girl in Town is chapter 1, and we hear Mom calling, "Laura, come on, the truck's packed. We're leaving." She's taking one last look at her old house, a moment that many of us can identify with, I think.
Yeah.
We cut to okay, so yes, she's and taking a moment to enjoy the rain. It will be the last time she can enjoy the rain. Coming, Mom. So Laura, are you awake? Of course I'm awake. This truck shakes constantly and it never stops raining. Honey, it rained all the time in Seattle. Yeah, but it wasn't constant like this. It's been raining for 2 days. They've been on a road for a while. Ever since we left, maybe it's a bad sign. Don't be silly. The hospital's offering me triple my old salary. And this is the start of a great new life for us. Now you can go to any college in the country. Any college that will take me. Now here's where it gets exciting. As soon as they arrive in town, look, there's the sign. Thump, thump. What the? And they have driven right into a rain of frogs.
Oh my God. Very good. Great stuff. Yeah.
Pull over, Mom. You're hitting them. So they get to witness the cleanup
Of
of the frogs. And
Yeah.
oh, Laura, let's just get to the house. Sure, Mom. Let's just pretend this is normal.
And
That's
that's
great.
So that's
Yeah.
how it starts.
so that's how the book starts. Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
So in the course of the first issue, we get to see a rain of frogs, of course. The true danger, which is acid rain.
Because
That's,
the story is that the people do actually melt in the rain in this town.
Yeah.
But there's multiple other odd things happening. She opens a drawer and sees a tiny Native American man in there.
There's tiny animals all about that. It's
Oh, this doesn't get to
yeah,
that part.
no, it's
Okay,
okay.
and then
But there's a lot of strange phenomenon throughout the series that
Right
it's
stuff. Yeah.
basically Carolyn brings in, ultimately is going to be bringing in fairy tale elements. There's one problem the town has is something called the creeping forest. We're working on those issues now, where the woods that contain those tiny animals is sort of insidiously creeping through the town, taking over houses.
and making parts of this town uninhabitable, and people have to move away because when you hack away or try and take away the forest, it comes back full force, and it takes revenge.
So we everywhere in town, people see the little animals that indicates the encroachment of the creeping forest. And they're trapped. They're trapped in the town of Deluge. Once they're in, they can't get out.
So
that's
the gist of the series.
Right.
and eventually where the problem that needs to be solved to get to the end of the story.
Right stuff. That sounds brilliant. It kind of reminds a bit of the Twilight Zone for for younger.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Twilight Zone.
Yeah. Great stuff. Yeah, that sounds. Thanks a lot for sharing that. That sounds brilliant.
Sure.
You were gonna say there, Mike. You were gonna say. Were you gonna say something?
Oh no! When you said Twilight Zone, I just thought of recently I was discussing it with somebody who was under the impression that there was actually a place called the Twilight Zone and all
Okay.
the stories were set in there, and it had to be explained to no, the Twilight Zone is an idea, it's a metaphor. And he was just pretty much like, well, I've watched like 50 of these and I'm pretty sure Twilight Zone's a real place. So anyway, I don't know if he's right and we're all wrong, but it made me think of what he's just said.
Yeah. That's great. And like, well, you shown that like it kind of thinks. Have you gonna kind of think you're gonna try and make a movie from it? Have you thought all
Oh,
about that?
that would be wonderful, but getting a
Okay.
movie done is
Yeah.
I would
a little different.
absolutely love to see a Netflix miniseries of
right?
this
Yeah.
comic book.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, from the beginning, I'm a comic book guy,
Yeah,
I do
yeah,
comics because I love comics.
brilliant. Yeah,
But that be and the idea of a movie or TV deal is usually just, for the,
yeah, I know. Yeah,
scratch. But I have to say, I would really, really love to see a TV teleplay of The People That Melt in the Rain. It would be fantastic. There's no
great
question.
Yeah.
stuff. Yeah, and where did the ideas come from for the book?
She had the title.
I
She,
just,
Yeah,
she had the title,
yeah, I just started with the title.
and she was going to write a short story.
right.
And
Right.
I said, I think that should be a comic book.
Mm.
Yeah.
And she said, I think you should draw that comic book. and then we were stuck. We were just stuck after
Yeah.
that. There was
Yeah.
no other way, no other way to move forward.
Yeah,
So
yeah. No, it sounds great. And like you can get it now. Is that the one you can get a free ebook
this
of? Is it or
this
Yes.
one,
yeah?
yeah, it's the first two
Okay.
chapters, and
Oh, brilliant.
this one's a free download.
Yeah,
So you can get this. I mean, the paperback, of course, is not free.
of
You
course.
you
Yeah,
have to
yeah,
buy
yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah.
But and then this one, this is the painting Ghosts, the new book is available. It's not very expensive as an ebook. I think it's like $2.
Oh, great. Yeah, no, that's great.
And then it's also available on Kindle Unlimited. So if you have that, you can read it for free through your subscription, or you can get the paperback, which is out there now. And the next book comes out in next March. We have the next one all set and ready to go. So
Well, thanks for that, Carol. Like, if you want to share all your links, probably the website is probably the easiest, so everybody can
okay, yeah, no,
can get your stuff.
I
Yeah,
can send you all the links when we're finished.
yeah, yeah, brilliant. Yeah, great stuff. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And can I just ask as well, for like what's next? Like you're saying, you've got like a book. The next book is coming out shortly. Is it when can people expect that? The
The
next
next book is called Rain, and that one's
yeah,
coming out in March.
March. Great.
So
Yeah.
we have it in 2 chapters at a time coming out,
Okay. Yeah.
because
Each issue.
in each issue, and it's because the art takes a while to draw and
Yeah.
to draw and
We're
color
doing we've got one
So-
coming out every 8 months.
yes,
Right.
so we're
Yeah.
trying to do an 8-month schedule. We're working quite a ways ahead on the stores, on the
Yeah.
story.
Great stuff. Yeah. And as well, yeah, thanks a lot for that. Yes, for people that are tuning in to keep their eye on stuff, so you can share whatever's coming
Mhm.
aboard with myself, and I put keep up to date with the show notes. That's great. And can I ask you, what way have you best found to market your books? What avenue have you found best ways for doing that?
Well, I find that with marketing, Amazon does offer a lot of things through, free promos and promo stacks, things like that, where you do group offerings. I'm going to San Diego Comic-Con next week. We both are. Actually, it's this week. Oh my God.
Yeah, this week.
We're
Next
flying to
week has
San
become
Diego
this
in
week.
2 days.
Yeah.
So yes, and I'm doing a promotion there for Ghosts for the new issue, and I'm going to talk to people. I'm going to try and create some online marketing promotions there. But the internet is invaluable, and I find that working with other authors is very helpful,
Mhm.
because other authors we're all in the same boat, and we
Definitely,
can
yeah.
work together to create
Mhm.
to promote each other, and it creates a great community, and it's a great community online to be involved in.
Definitely.
Other authors are probably one of the best resources you have out there
Mhm.
as an independent creator, I think. So,
Definitely. And you were saying earlier on that your books are available in some libraries.
mhm.
Is that locally or
No, mostly online libraries like
okay?
Libby. Do you know what Libby is? Yeah.
I've heard of it. Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah. And have you entered bookshops in your local area for your books? Is that something you've
For
investigated?
locally, since we live in Mexico, getting English language books into in a Spanish speaking country, it's a little tricky. I have to focus mostly online promotion.
Yeah.
I do have some Spanish language children's books that are about Mazatlan, and I do have those in local shops.
But as something, as advice for other authors and creators, going to your local shops is fantastic. When we lived in San Diego a good long time ago, we found that the local shops were very welcoming. About carrying our books.
They'll really help you out. They can consign. I do consign books to people through the mail, but that's much harder to do. I think that locally you're just much better off doing that personal connection is really valuable.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned there, like you've got other books in Spanish language as well, Carolyn. What ones are they? Because I've had different authors in the podcast who have Spanish and English books. So like if they're listening to this, they might be interested,
Yeah, okay. Well, I have As the Sun Rises Morning in Mazatlan is available in Spanish, and so is the next book in that series is called The Lighthouse Cats of Mazatlan. And those books are both English and Spanish. I'm working on a book that I'm just the illustrator on called Just Down the Street. And that one is going to be bilingual.
And also set in Mazatlan.
And that's also set in Mazatlan, but it's by somebody else.
By an author you've worked with before. The Adventures of Goody and Cookie. Right?
Goody and Cookie, yes.
Cookie.
That's a great name. That's a great name.
But this is her first Spanish book. It's R.H. Bynum is the author for that. And then I'm also coming out with another book that I'm going to do in multiple languages called Cragglepuss. Cragglepuss is about a dragon, and it's mostly wordless with one bit of dialogue at the end that I'm going to just translate into multiple languages because it's just one sentence and it's not. So, but that's a children's book. Yeah.
And is that a kind of hard thing to do? Like get your book in multilingual for different languages, or what?
No, actually, one of my best-selling books is the Japanese version of Dragonstones. I did a story called Dragonstones. It's a children's book. And I found somebody in one of my many author groups who was looking to get experience as a translator, and she lived in Japan. I don't speak Japanese at all. Not a word. So I said, okay, you could try with my children's book because it's got a limited word count. And she did the whole thing. Stephanie was great. She translated the whole book and sent me the translation, and I released it in Japanese. And now that sells all the time off of Amazon. And I didn't, it took me completely by surprise. I mean, if you have the opportunity to translate one of your books into Japanese, that might be worth it.
Because I think it's one of the most popular languages in the world.
I guess so. Yeah.
Well, that's great. Congratulations on that. That's brilliant. Because it kind of moves nicely onto the next question for you both. I suppose like one thing you're really happy about, your one achievement that you've had in your writing, what would it be? Like if you could maybe put it down to one thing that you're both really happy with the success
Of
you're
something
writing
that
and
makes us happy about it. Well, in terms of success, probably the most successful part of my publishing journey was getting my books read by
Hello.
this is my cat. I think he's hungry.
yeah.
I was getting my books read on Storytime with Fergie and Friends, which is the Duchess of York. Sarah Ferguson read two of my children's books on her channel, different times, and I I was blown away. You know, I
Yeah,
having a famous person read your books really
yeah, yeah.
is really sort of amazing. So that was
That's
probably
that's a great
one of the
story.
high
That's
points.
yeah, definitely. Congratulations. That's big time, all right. And yourself, Mike?
Um, in the last year at Comic-Con San Diego, we debuted my first prose novella called The Earthlings. It's a science fiction, kind of it's a post-alien invasion, as in the novel starts the day the aliens leave, and it's basically about humans, or what passes for humans at that point, and how they deal with the world after this alien occupation. And this year we're going to be debuting a second book of prose called Gothic Nightmares, which is two of my short horror stories collected together in one hardcover. So I guess as proud as I am of my graphic novels, we've been printing my story, The Crypt Kid, both serialized in my magazine Forbidden Futures, and printed as a graphic novel. And it looks like we're going to be releasing it again as individual issues. Just out of art school, I started working on a project called Weirdling, which came out as a relatively short run graphic novel that has sort of cult status. So we're actually re-releasing that story as individual issues, as well as finally, after many, many years, I'm writing and drawing new issues of that story, Weirdling, as well as The Crypt Kid, while continuing, of course, to work on The People That Melt in the Rain. So in terms of, again, I'm super proud of all the graphic novels and comic book work. But I think, like many writers, there's sort of a special place for the prose. Just as, oh my God, I wrote prose and it's okay, it's readable, and other people seem to like it, as opposed to writing that's backed up by my artwork, which I'm like, all right, well, they're always going to like the artwork, and writing and artwork together is always entertaining. But and to be fair, my novels are illustrated, but the fact that they're presented as prose is really makes me happy and proud of them. So, and those are available on barnesandnoble.com. You can search my name and they should come up.
That's brilliant. Well done to you both. That's absolutely great work, great stuff. Because if you can even share, if you both have a website, I can probably easiest to share that for people to
Sure,
find. But
yeah, I'll
yeah,
provide it. It's forbiddenfutures.com, and I'll send you the URL. We also have one other project we wanted to talk
oh,
about.
great stuff. Yeah,
We've
yeah.
recently put out a baby book. Now,
About
most of what
children's book.
like a children's
Yeah.
book, but for very, very young readers. Let me show the color piece first.
But we're running the Kickstarter right now for it. So this is the cover art.
Oh, well, let's see.
Is it showing? No.
Other people can always do this. I don't know how to do it.
I know, yeah, yeah.
It's just a big glare. Oh dear, what happened to it? Okay.
Okay. So what we do have
Here.
is my my pen and inks. Now these got color treatment, of course, for the book. But this is my book, The Elephant and the Teapot Are Friends.
Great stuff. Yeah.
I wrote this story, and it's we're running a Kickstarter for it right now. The art is actually really spectacular. I'm really amazed by the work he did. And the colors look really, really good.
So here's the cover piece again, and just in black and white. So
sorry.
And this was in this case, the title just kind of got stuck in my head, and I wrote it in my notebook, and sort of thought, well, that's not the kind of thing I do. But one day it came up again, and I suggested that Carolyn write me some rhyming verse to go with it, because as a father who has read countless books to my kids, countless.
Yeah, yeah.
I always preferred the rhythm of rhyming books. They're very out of favor among traditional publishers these days, but I wanted to write the kind of book that I would have wanted to read to my kids when they were little. So Carolyn wrote the prose, and I drew the pictures and did very rich digital colors on them, colors that little kids will like, and it's just really just a really great book. We say young readers, but I really mean young people being read too. So
Yeah,
Yeah, it's baby and preschool
yeah,
age.
baby and preschool book. So a departure. It was a pure joy. I really needed a change of pace, and I absolutely loved doing it.
Mhm.
We're running the Kickstarter now, so you can find it if you go to Kickstarter, of course, and search The Elephant and the Teapot are friends. But we'll give you the link as well. So that Kickstarter is happening right now.
Yeah, it's got a coloring book too.
Yeah, so we released the entire book in the line art that I showed you as a coloring book. So it just works great as both a terrific book to sit down and read to your baby or very young child, and then they can color it their own version of it from beginning to end. And
That's great.
it's just as cute as we could make it.
Yeah, what a great idea. Well done, guys. That's absolutely brilliant. Yeah. Well done.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, that's great. And it kind of can I ask you as well, what kind of strategy do you use when you're creating your books? Would you kind of have a certain strategy that you both use together when you're doing your creations?
Um, well, I'll do a lot of the writing, and then Mike gives me a lot of input with the books we've done together. Mike gives me a lot of input, and then things get changed, things get edited. In The People That Melt in the Rain, because of Mike, we added an entire new character and her entire story arc right in the middle of that series. So it's a lot of what we do is very much collaborative on both the writing and the drawing. So
Yeah, no, that's great. Yeah, yeah, brilliant. No, that's great. I really appreciate you both coming on today to the podcast as
sure.
well. It's great to get back on, Carolyn. You can check out the
Yeah.
we done one about a year or two ago, so it's great to have you back on. Always welcome on to the show.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, yeah,
I really appreciate it.
yeah. And before we go, just one quick thing. I know you mentioned the book coming out shortly, the next book, and it sounds a great idea the way you're doing it, like putting out
Mhm.
different chapters. Now again, that's the kind of format, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But so is there anything you'd like to maybe for the listeners and people watching YouTube, anything to watch out for that's coming up shortly for you both?
Shortly inside the story of
Yeah, yeah.
People
Like
That
I
Melt.
mean, yeah, anything you're doing, like even
Well,
readings in libraries or anything like that, or
oh,
Anything
events.
events or
Well, the
events?
big
Or
event
sorry,
we have coming
yeah.
up is definitely San Diego Comic-Con for that.
Oh, okay, great.
And
Yeah,
if you are in California, I do hope you'll stop by. As far as The People That Melt in the Rain, we are also going to be featured in Kid Leo magazine talking about that book. And that will be in March where that's going to be happening. And then mostly access to the books and everything is online. So that's for everyone everywhere who has an online access.
great stuff, Carolyn. Thanks a lot.
Sure.
So you'll be able to find me again at San Diego Comic-Con, in the Indie Publishing Pavilion at the Forbidden Futures booth. And I for some reason don't have a booth number yet, but we're right near the bathrooms, so very easy to find.
Yeah, yeah.
There, of course, I'll be dealing Forbidden Futures magazine, which is a science fiction pulp magazine with a little bit of comics. All the art is done by me from cover to cover, and we work with the best writers in the world, providing stories based on my artwork. And so that's where I'll be selling my prose novels as well, and a number of other prose novels that I illustrated. We carry there at Forbidden Futures / Oddness. Oddness is the publisher, Forbidden Futures is the magazine. And yeah, I suppose with that, again, all of those books can be found through Barnes and Noble. We do have exciting news, but I'm supposed to be keeping it under my hat for now.
Right. That's great
So.
stuff.
Curious, exciting news.
Yeah, mum's the word, huh? Yeah. So, guys, thanks a million for coming on the show again. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome you back on the podcast.
Yeah, yeah.
And I wish you all the success going
Thank you so
forward as well with
much.
everything you do. You know,
I hope
welcome.
oh, I'm sorry. I hope the heat wave breaks there where you are.
Yeah, yeah, it's warm. Yeah. Okay, thanks so much, Mike and Carolyn Dubisch. Pleasure to have you on, and thanks everyone for watching and listening on Spotify to today's podcast. So join us next time for Mark's motivational podcast, Authors Tuesday. Take care and thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark.
Bye-bye, Mark.
Hello everyone, Mark here. Thank you for watching another episode of my Authors Tuesday podcast. I recently published a book of children's stories called The Adventures of Larry Lamppost and Friends. The book began life as bedtime stories I wrote for my own children. If you'd like to purchase my book, follow the link in the description box below. By buying my book, you are also supporting my podcast series for authors, which is giving a voice to writers in Ireland and across the world.